Spring just slid into your DMs. Grab that boho look for that rooftop dinner, those sandals that can keep up with you, and hang some string lights to give your patio a glow up. Spring's calling. Ross, work your magic.
For the haters, come on, do it now or later. Yeah. It don't matter what your name is, share your story, we'll be waiting. For the haters, whoa.
Welcome back, everyone, to For the Haters podcast. Today, we're joined by Danielle. Danielle was raised by a single mom with a disability in the same small town as the father who chose not to be a part of her life. From the time she was little, she was carrying things most kids don't have the words for yet. Now, as an adult, Danielle is a mom herself, and she's recently stepped into a new role as a caregiver for the mother who raised her, who's now living with dementia. Today, we're walking through what it's like to grow up early, to live in the same space as someone else's absence, and to parent in two directions at once. This is her story. When you're a kid, you don't have anything to compare your life to. Your family is just your family. Whatever is normal in your house becomes the shape of the whole world. And the things that stood out later, the things that told you something was different, didn't feel like anything at the time. They were just a Tuesday. For Danielle, the first thing she noticed wasn't dramatic. It was a wagon.
My mom didn't drive. I think that was kind of because of disability, but she also had epilepsy. If my grandma or my aunt and uncle couldn't bring her somewhere, we walked everywhere. And so if it was to get groceries, we would be hauling a wagon, getting our groceries, walking back home. So that's kind of the first time I recognized hey, something's a little different, but didn't really think too much of it.
Nobody ever sat Danielle down and explained what her mom's diagnosis was. Piecing it together as an adult, she thinks it was probably a mild intellectual disability. But as a kid, all she knew was that her mom couldn't drive and that sometimes people came around to help. When you're little, you don't question the extra hands. You just accept that this is how things work.
I believe I was in 4th or 5th grade, and she had a home health aide. And so this person basically took her to appointments if it was scheduled on the day that she was there, took her to the store, but also helped her manage her money. And so, again, not really recognizing it then, but now I'm looking back and I'm like, okay, so those were some times where I'm like, this person helps my mom. And she helped her for a really long time, even until I was in my 20s, I want to say.
You probably just thought that was normal, right? If you didn't know anything.
Yeah, because she became a big part of our lives too. Like, she was my mom's home health aide, but I, she was just, a part of our family.
Because here's the thing about being raised by a single parent with a disability. A lot of what you're carrying as a kid isn't the obvious stuff. It's the wagon or the home health aide. It's the expectations the adults in your life quietly hand you, sometimes without even realizing they're doing it.
One of my mom's siblings and my grandma, they always said, Danielle, make sure you are a good girl and you listen to your mom. And in the moment, I was always like, what are you talking about? I am. Why do you always say that? But I think it was because, along with my mom's disability, she can have a hard time managing the emotions. So if she's stressed out, her emotions tend to be a little higher. And so I think really what they meant by that was listen to your mom, don't stress her out. So I feel like that was probably my main responsibility as a child.
Kids in houses like this learn to read the room early. They learn what will set off a stressful day and what won't. They learn which version of their mom they're getting when they walk through the door after school. It isn't parenting yourself exactly. It's more like parenting around someone. making yourself smaller in the places where there isn't room to take up space.
For her, I want to say she was in special education classes and stuff like that. It really wasn't prevalent unless it was like school stuff. More so if I had questions on like my homework and stuff like that, she would not be able to fully help me with that.
Mhm.
Unless it was anything with reading or like spelling, because she like excelled at that. So that's where I mainly saw it. Otherwise, I didn't really notice.
Mhm. Who did help you with your homework as a kid?
I would say, like, I would ask friends for help or, like, teachers. I was very good at asking for help with schoolwork at school. Otherwise, I don't know, probably, like, my aunt, my mom's sister-in-law technically, but yeah.
There's a line kids like Danielle learn to draw, and they learn it young. This is what mom can help me with, and this is what she can't. You don't resent her for it, you just route around it.
Anything like that, like dating, like friend stuff, I typically went to my aunt. But anything like yeah, I can still remember, like, when I got my period for the first time and I was not home and stuff, and I called her and she was like, "Come home, I have everything for you." So puberty, that kind of thing, health stuff, yes. Boys, friends, that kind of stuff, not as much.
Somewhere along the way, the roles start shifting in ways no one really names out loud. Not all at once, just slowly. You're the kid who sets the table, then you're the kid who reads the mail, then you're the kid bouncing a checkbook that isn't yours because the math has to be right and the money has to last. And you're the one that has to hold both numbers in your head.
I would say a lot of it was with not necessarily managing money, but helping her with because it's interesting because when I was younger, she would get her monthly checks and she would get it in cash. And then any of the bills she get like I think they're like cashier's checks, I think is what they're called, or like a money order or something. So she'd have those to pay the bills, but then everything else was in cash. And then I wanna say probably like late middle school, early high school, then she had a checking account. So, I helped a lot with writing checks and then balancing her checkbook, and then also too, just helping her with, like, when she would prepare to go grocery shopping to try and stay within her budget because with the cash, it was physically, like, in front of her, but with the checkbook, it was just, like, numbers with the balance, if that makes sense. That just seemed more like I had to be on top of that. Like I had to be on budget. I had to have everything written out because it wasn't necessarily my money, it was hers. And it was such a fixed income. So if I messed it up, like we could be screwed.
All of this happening in a house where one parent is already missing, not missing because something took him, missing because he chose it. And what makes it harder to explain, harder to sit with, is that he wasn't far. He wasn't a picture on a wall or a name on a birthday card that never came. He lived in the same town, drove the same streets, worked a job she could have walked to. Sometimes his house was the one just across the yard. And I think there's a special kind of ache that comes from growing up in a proximity to the absence of someone. When the person who decided not to be your parent is still close enough that you can pass them at the grocery store, it isn't mystery. It isn't distance. It's a choice made in plain sight every single day.
Your father lived in the same town as you. How often did you see him growing up?
Yes, that's a wild situation. I was an oopsie. I wasn't supposed to happen. And so, like, when my mom found out she was pregnant with me, my dad basically was like, I don't want to be involved in any way. So my mom, she still did the whole court thing. He still had to like support in the form of like child support and provide medical insurance. But other than that, he was not involved at all. There was a period of time where we lived in an apartment building that was literally in his backyard. And he had a long-term girlfriend. They eventually got married, but she had 2 girls from a previous relationship. One of them was like a couple 3, 4 years older than me, and then one was actually in my grade. So, in our apartment building, like, neighborhood, like, all the kids would play together, and those girls would play with us too. So, like, sometimes I would see him outside. Sometimes we would go to their house and play and he would be there, but again, he just, like, for lack of a better word, just ignored me, basically. And then, like, as I got older, if my friends and I were, like, hanging out and about in town, like, I would see him driving around and stuff like that. I knew where he worked too. So, yeah, we were around each other probably more than many people might think. But, yeah, he completely did not regard me in any way.
When you were younger, how did you explain that absence to yourself? Was it explained to you by any adults?
I think, like, how my mom always explained it, and she always did a good job at not being negative about him. She always just explained it in a way of he just made a decision to not be here. But I think, like, internally, more as I got into, like, later elementary and middle school, it was more internally in a way of I am not good enough for him to be in my life. Or, like, even what is wrong with me that he doesn't want to be my dad, or what's wrong with me for him to be a stepdad to these two girls when I'm his actual
Yeah.
daughter. So it was more of a negative
Yeah.
connection.
She keeps trying anyway. That's the part that sits with me. How kids will reach even when they've already been told no. Even when the adult in front of them has made it clear they don't want to be reached. A child doesn't have the language yet for rejection. All she knows is that she has a dad somewhere, and she made him something. And maybe this time, he'll show up.
Did you ever try to initiate more connection with him?
I did. A few things that pop in my mind is I want to say it was like in preschool. So, like, with Father's Day being in the summer, you did like Father's Day projects, like after Mother's Day ones. And I remember I brought it home from preschool and I said, Mom, I want to give this to my dad. And she was like, okay. And so they had each other's phone numbers because with him having to provide medical insurance, he had to be able to get like updated insurance cards to my mom. So they had numbers with each other or phone numbers. So she called him and said, hey, Danielle has a Father's Day gift for you. Do you want to come and get it? And he did, but I can remember this. I can picture it in my head actually, like right now. Like I was standing at the top of the stairs that was right by the door, and I did not go down to give it to him. And I don't know, maybe I was nervous. I don't know. But my mom gave it to him. He didn't acknowledge me at all. Later in life, though, my mom did tell me that he said this would never happen again and to not ask him to do something like that. Do
It
it.
seems like that you consistently tried to reach out and consistently tried to
Mhm.
give him more chances. Do you think that's because you were in the same town as him and you had that connection? Like you saw him with other, like his wife's daughters?
I think so. And as I got older, I recognized, hey, I don't have a dad. I want a relationship with a dad. Like my uncle was a big part of my life as like a father figure. And then one of my friends, or I would say two of my friends' dads were actually very big father figures in my life, but it just never was the
Hmm.
same. It was always like they're your dad and they're being nice to me, but I want my dad to pay attention to me.
Kids in Danielle's situation end up building a patchwork. A friend's dad who makes room for you at the dinner table, an uncle who shows up to the games. Good men, good substitutes, but you know they're substitutes. And no matter how kind they are, there's still a door in your life that stays closed. And the person on the other side of it is the only one you actually wanted. The rest of his side of the family was out there too. Technically, Danielle has older brothers, almost a generation older. But technically is the word that matters, because a sibling you've never lived with, never grown up beside, isn't really a sibling in the way you need one to be. They existed somewhere. They just weren't hers.
So I have older brothers, but they're quite a bit
Hmm.
older than me. I want to say the age difference between me and the closest brother is 15 years. So, as I got older, they're obviously adults and they're having kids and stuff like that too. And I've always been someone that has loved kids. And so that was probably the other piece too is okay, it's always just been my mom and I. I want siblings. Like this is I want what my friends have because I think out of my friends group, I'm probably the only child now that I think of it. So I also wanted siblings too. Even though they were older than me, I still wanted that.
Did you ever have a connection with them even though they were older? Have you talked to them or met them?
So I have. So long story short, my aunt happened to be the same place as one of them one time and just started talking to him. There might have been some alcohol involved too. But he ended up like sending me a message on Facebook and he was like, "Hey, I just found out some things. We should probably talk." And I was like, "Hey." And then my aunt called me and she's like, "I accidentally did something." And I was like, "You didn't accidentally, you did it on purpose." So we talked. I don't know, tried to have a relationship, but I don't know if because this was more so when I was an adult. I'm going to say I was like my early 20s, mid 20s when that happened. And so we tried to have somewhat of a relationship, but I don't know if it was weird for him or if it was weird for me. It just never kind of went. It didn't make it into any type of relationship.
There's a point, and Danielle couldn't tell you exactly when it happened, when you stop reaching. It isn't a decision. It's more like waking up one day and realizing you stopped a long time ago. Life kept moving. She went to college. She built something. She stopped waiting for him to become someone he never was going to be. And then he dies. This is one of the most complicated kinds of grief there is. The kind that doesn't have a clear shape because what you're mourning isn't exactly the person. It's the door. It's the maybe someday you'd been quietly holding onto without even realizing you were still holding it. As long as he was alive, there was a version of the story where something could still happen, where he could show up, where he could apologize, where he could surprise everyone, including himself, and finally become the father she's been waiting for. And the day he died, that version died too. Not loudly, not in a way anyone would think to send flowers for, just quietly, in the background of someone else's loss.
We actually passed away in 2017. I stopped making my efforts. I think my last effort was sending graduation invitation and getting a card just from his wife. I think she only signed her name. And so I think that I was just done because I'm going to college. Like, I don't need to stress about this anymore. There were times in my early 20s where there's two separate occasions where I was out with friends and he was out with his wife and he tried to talk to me. It was honest, early 20s. I was out with friends. I had a little bit of alcohol and I was walking past him and all of a sudden there was a hand out that was like pulling me in and I was like, "Who's touching me?" First of all. And I turned and I don't remember what he said because I was just in pure shock. And I just looked at him and walked away. It was like a deer in headlights. Nothing happened again. Nothing regarding that happened again. And then there was like a time of like several months later where he tried to buy me like a beer at the bar. And I was like, "I don't want this." I was like, if he wants to talk to me, he can find a time to talk to me outside of a bar. And so I just let it be at that. He never tried after that last time. And then, yeah, he ended up actually passing away in 2017. So I never actually really ever connected with him in a way that I had tried like my whole life. I think there's two parts to it. I think I did some grieving, like knowing that I was never going to have what I wanted with him. But then I think with his passing, it really like made that realization permanent because while he was alive, I think in the back of my head, I always was like, there's still a chance. But once he passed away, it was like, that's all gone now. Yeah, it's done. And even like, I had to find out from a friend that he passed away because nobody thought to tell me. So that was interesting as well. I went to his visitation, before the family was present, because some of them would know who I am, and out of respect to them, I was like, I don't want them to feel weird with me there, even though I had every right to be there. But out of respect for them, I just went when nobody was there, which was weird, a whole weird experience too. And I did attend the funeral and stuff like that too, which was interesting as well, because not only did like his wife and her kids know, and then my brothers know who I was, but people in town know. It's like that unspoken thing, like, this is her dad, but we don't talk about it. And so I got a lot of looks from that too. I feel like the grieving of the finalization of, hey, you're not going to have this relationship probably came several months like
Mm,
after
yeah.
that.
That's the grief that doesn't just go away. It just finds a new shape and life keeps going, even when you're not sure how. In the middle of all this, the mom she was half raising, the dad who wouldn't look at her, Danielle does what a lot of kids from complicated houses do. She leaves. Not in a dramatic way, just in a way that college makes possible. An hour and a half up the road, far enough to breathe, close enough to come back.
What was that feeling that you felt when you left for college?
It was, I thought my mom was going to cry when I left, but I was the one bawling as I was walking out the door and hugging her and driving away and all of that. I think it was like just a mixture of like nervous that she's not going to have me there every single day, that she's just going to be alone, because it was just me and her for 18
Mhm.
years. And so I think I was probably sad that she was going to be alone. Because like she had some friends, but not really a lot. Because by that time, my grandma had passed away. And yeah, I think I was just sad that she was going to be alone. But I was also very excited to be on my own and be separate from
How
it
far
too.
away?
It was about an hour and a half. So not too far, far enough. But then I was still able to come home when I
Mhm.
wanted to.
Is it in college that you start to process the life that you had growing up?
In ways, yeah, because I lived in the dorms, I met people and stuff like that too. But I think processing in a way of I wasn't that much different than I really
Mm.
thought I was. Because the college I went to, I wanna say there was like 14,000 students maybe, or maybe it was like 12,000 between there. And so I met a lot of people. And so, yeah, I think it was more of, hey, I wasn't that different. How I grew up isn't isn't that strange really.
College is also where Danielle starts dating. For a lot of people, that's just the normal part of being 19, 20, 21. But when you grow up the way that she grew up, with the specific kind of absence she grew up with, dating isn't neutral territory. It's where the old wounds show up in new clothes.
What did that feel like starting to build your own relationships?
So I had my fair share of really shitty relationships. And honestly, after going to therapy myself, I learned that was in connection with my dad, because growing up, all I wanted was him to pay attention to me, for him to want to be in my life. So then, like, in my early 20s, it was like I didn't care if some guy just wanted nothing from me or wanted something physical from me. I was like, whatever, it's just a thing. He's paying attention to me. And then I had two relationships where I would say were serious relationships, where one ended up cheating on me. He was like living like this whole double life. It was crazy. And then I dated someone more long term who actually struggled with addiction. And I stayed in it way too long. But again, I was getting something from someone. So I actually went to therapy. I did go after my dad died, but then my aunt, who was the one that kind of pushed me to go to college and stuff, she ended up getting really sick and she passed away. So I went to therapy thinking it was for grief, but it was processing my dad completely and just learning like the patterns of like why I make the decisions I did in relationships. And so all that work allowed me to really like focus on myself and not or and really learn like what I'm not going to put up with in a relationship and what I want from someone, and almost finding my voice too as well, cuz I was never one to like voice anything. Basically, like I never said, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong," or like you're treating me like shit, or you lied and I know you lied, but you're turning it around on me, so it's fine.
This is where Danielle's story starts to quietly shift. Not because the pain of her dad goes away, it doesn't, but because she stops letting it pick her partners for her. Therapy does what therapy does. And then someone shows up who actually is what she's looking for. And of course, she almost didn't let him in.
I would say I met my husband probably 4 years, like, after I really did, like, that healing in therapy, and it was hard. It was so hard because I knew that I did the healing. I knew that what I wanted and what I needed and what I deserved in a relationship, and he was a good man. But I was like, "This feels weird. I don't know if I like this." So that was a whole just, like, learning to be, like, okay
Yeah,
with
I
that.
mean, forming stable relationships after knowing nothing but, like, chaos, I say that constantly, just, like, what that shock is. Healthy feels
It
boring a
is.
lot of the times for people that
It
are
does. It does.
used to chaos.
And then I found myself, like, trying to find things
Mhm.
wrong. Like, I wanna say there was one where he, like, butchered his spelling in a text message, and my friend was like, "Stop, you are self-sabotaging." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And she's like, "You are." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know I am. Okay." So it was a lot of, like, nitpicking, like, trying to make this relationship end, and it didn't end. All my, like, trying and everything, but I was also very open with him too, like, about my history with dating, but with my dad and all that stuff too, and he was very patient and very kind.
So how long have you guys been together? How long have you been married?
So we have been together, let me see here. November will be together for 8 years.
But life doesn't wait until you've fully healed from one thing before it hands you the next. Because around the same time, Danielle was learning how to let someone love her, how to build a marriage, how to trust a good man, her mom was starting to slip, slowly at first, in the kind of small ways you can almost explain away. Forgetting conversations, missing pills, falling, the kind of changes you notice but don't want to name yet, because naming them makes them real.
Who had brought up the possibility of dementia first?
My best friend, actually, I would tell her, like, little things that were happening, like, it started off small, like, my mom would forget, like, things I would tell
Oh.
her. So then she'd be calling me a lot, and I'd be like, "I just told you this." So that, and then she started missing her medications. And so then we put them in, like, we had the pharmacy put them in bubble packs. And so I don't know if you're familiar
Mm-mm.
with bubble packs. So basically what they do is they put, like, all your morning meds in this little, like, thing, and all your morning meds are in this little, like, packet, and you pop it out for, like, March 1st. You pop it out for March 2nd. So we did that for all our meds so that she wouldn't forget, because she was doing, like, they were just in the pill bottles, and I was like, "We gotta do something different." So we put them just in a med planner, and she was still missing. So then we did the bubble pack so she didn't have to set them up at all. But then she was still missing things, or missing meds. And then she was falling a lot as well. So just like really her strength really changed too. But then also there was the emotional side too. She was very, I don't even know how to describe it. She was just more like dysregulated, very quick to anger, very irritable. And I got the brunt end of that because, again, I'm an only child. So my friend was like, "Hey, like, I'm just wondering if something more is going on. I think you really need to consider maybe having her have some type of like neurological evaluation or something." Well, then COVID happened. And so basically, like, I was her caretaker, but I also didn't live with her. I was still living like half a block from her, which actually was a blessing. at that time, but I was also still working. So like I tried to see her as much as I needed to, but not enough to where like I brought anything home. And so I was doing so many things. She kept falling. I was going to the grocery store for her, all these things. And she continued to keep missing meds. And so then my friend was like, "Hey, I know you're waiting to get into the neurologist, but maybe we should look at some other type of living situation for her." So we actually moved her into an assisted living in May of 2020. So still all in COVID. That was one of the best things I did there because she still had her independence, but there was someone there making sure she was taking meds. She didn't have to clean her house. Someone cleaned her rooms for her. Someone made her meals.
How was that transition? Was that something she just automatically agreed to, or was it a difficult conversation?
No. So I started the conversation slowly, just bringing up, like, hey, these things are happening. But then she wasn't remembering that they were happening either. So then I actually reached out to her primary doctor and I was like, I think this needs to happen, but she's not going to listen to me. Can you help me do this? And so we actually had her see her doctor, and her doctor ended up having the conversation with her, with me present. But she actually took that load off of me, which is great because she was pretty responsive to the doctor. So we moved her. But again, it was during COVID. So like I could not go in and see her. I basically had to talk to her on a phone, like outside her window. And so that was really hard because she got so disoriented. That initially worked itself out though. And then we were able to see the neuropsych. He did give the dementia diagnosis. And so she lived in this assisted living facility until she started progressing more. And then we actually just moved her to the memory care unit this last August, which again was the best thing to do because she's progressing pretty quickly,
What
I
does
would
that
say.
emotionally look like for you? Like when she gets the diagnosis, do you have time to process what is actually happening? Or are you just in that caregiver automatic mode?
I would say the caregiver, 'cause I was already doing a lot of it. It was actually hard to separate myself from allowing the assisted living facility to do more than what I was doing. So I remember having just like a mixture of emotions because I was so relieved that like I was not going to go to her place and she'd been laying on the floor for 10 hours with a broken hip or something. But I was also very sad at the same time because I was like, okay, this is the start of where I truly am going to switch roles. I'm going to be more of the parent and she's going to be more of the child, but also like just the nature of dementia. I was like, okay, this is the road where we're starting on. Like she's going to eventually get to a point where she probably doesn't know who I am. And so that was a sad thought as well, just because nobody ever wants their parent to forget who they were or who they are. So
Somewhere in the middle of it all, the assisted living transition, the neurologist appointments, the slow realization that her mom was disappearing in real time, Danielle found out she was pregnant. And I keep thinking about that timing because becoming a mother is its own enormous thing, even in the best of circumstances. And doing it all while you're already caregiving for the parent who raised you, while you're holding on to the grandmother she'll get to meet, knowing you don't know for how long. That's a different kind of entry into motherhood entirely.
You just have one child?
yes, and we are probably only going to have one because I had a lot of birth trauma
Fair.
with that.
I was just
So,
talking to Leah about how I don't understand how people have a lot of kids as we're like watching our
mhm, mhm,
8-month-old run around, not run, in his walker
mhm.
like a maniac.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter turns 3 next week, and so we are in the thick of, like,
Yeah.
chaos, but good chaos. But yes, no, we are only going to have 1.
Something specific happens when you become a parent after being raised the way that Danielle was raised. You don't just think about the kind of mother you want to be. You think about every small thing you didn't get, every quiet dinner where no one asked how your day was, every time you wanted to be noticed and weren't, every version of present you didn't quite get from either of them. And you start quietly cataloging. not out of bitterness, out of intention. Because you know the way only someone who lived it knows, which absences leave marks and which ones don't. And you decide, before she even arrives, that your daughter is never going to have to wonder where you are.
Becoming a parent shifted how you viewed your childhood?
Yes, because, um, well, first, I wanted to be present with my daughter. I wanted her to know I am there for her. Like, no matter what, she can know I'm a constant in her life because my dad was not that person. I also knew my husband was going to be a good dad
Mhm.
too, as well, which is what I wanted as well. Of course, we all want that, or we want a good, solid partner. But I just remember early on dating, like, I knew he was going to be someone my dad
Yeah.
wasn't. But also too was my mom. I know she loved me. I know she cared, all of that stuff, but she very much, like most of the nights at home were really quiet. Like she'd be either watching TV, reading, and I would be playing on my own a lot. And again, that goes back to always just wanting to be present and interacting with my daughter, but also along with my mom's disability with the emotion, like the challenges with emotion regulation. She yelled a lot sometimes, and so I sometimes find myself yelling, and I'm like, "Whoa." So I wanna make sure too that I'm not yelling a lot, which sounds so weird to say, but that's something I just remember from my childhood that I want to try to have less of.
Here's the part that sits with me. By the time Danielle became a mother to her own daughter, she'd already been mothering someone for a very long time. She'd been doing it since she was small, quietly, without the word for it, without anyone telling her that's. And the woman she'd been taking care of her whole life, the mom who walked her to the grocery store with a wagon, who had her balance a checkbook in middle school, who loved her the best she knew how, that woman was already starting to disappear. Not all at once, just slowly, in the quiet way that dementia takes people. So when Danielle became a mom, she wasn't stepping into a new role. She was stacking it on top of one she'd never actually put down, parenting in two directions at once.
Are there any other emotions that you feel during this?
I think there's some guilt there just because she has dementia, and so I'm like, eventually she's not gonna remember, and I feel like I should be spending as much time as I can with her. But with her being an hour away and working full time and being a mom and all that stuff, it's like I can't always get there. So I think I feel some guilt there where I'm like, you have the intrusive thoughts of you're a terrible daughter, like you should be going every single day. But I know I'm not a terrible daughter. I know like it's okay. Like she's getting amazing care. It's a wonderful place. And I think when I see her and she's happy, that also is very
Yeah.
helpful too. That helps like guilt.
I think a lot of people struggle with that decision, and I think a lot of people are in that position of
Mhm.
they should have done it sooner. I we went through it with my dad and all the things, but if someone's listening to this and you're questioning if it's time, right? Like, I don't even know if there's too soon. Like, you're
Right.
saving I don't even know if the word is saving. It's just there's places that are built to take care of people and take that responsibility off of your plate.
Yes. Because now I can finally be her daughter. And I don't know if I have felt that ever. No, I think really the last time I felt that was probably, I don't know, late elementary, middle school. Otherwise, I have never really felt like just a daughter. And so moving her there has allowed me to just be that. And they call me like they have to call me like if something happens because she continues to fall and stuff like that. And anytime there's like any type of med
Mhm.
adjustment, they have to call me and tell me. But now it's a call where it's not like I'm anticipating what am I going to have to deal with right now? Because sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes I'd get phone calls from her when she had a phone or the facility she lived with, and I would be like, oh, great. Now what do I have
Yeah.
to deal with? Going into a defensive mode, protection mode of what is going to happen. But now I know more than likely they're calling, tell me she probably fell or something, which Still sucks, obviously, but I don't have to do anything with it. I don't have to make any decisions.
There's a version of caregiving that swallows the caregiver whole, where the person doing the care solely disappears into the task of it, showing up for everyone else while something inside them quietly runs dry. Danielle knew that version. She'd been living inside of it most of her life, and at some point, she had to learn the thing nobody teaches you when you grow up in the way that she grew up, that protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's what lets you stay.
Do you feel like you have learned how to protect your own mental health while having to care for other people?
I think so, but I think so in the hard way. Just because I have been really like a caretaker
Mhm.
forever, it feels like. And I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. I think because I think sometimes I think I'm better now, but I used to give like way too
Mhm.
much. Like if someone asked me to do something or I don't know, like even just hanging out and stuff, even though I'm like dead tired, I would still do it. Or going out and stuff like that. And I basically was like a yes
Mhm.
person, like always saying yes. So I think like I spread myself thin, I would say. I think though, like getting older, going to therapy too, and I still go to therapy. I have my same therapist. I've seen her off and on for the past like 10 years. So she's actually been through basically half my 20s and half my 30s, basically. And so I think prioritizing therapy with someone that like has learned me and how I am and stuff like that. And she's very blunt and honest with me. So I think maintaining that has helped me learn how to protect myself. So now if I don't want to do something, I'm like, no, I don't want to, which again, I should have been doing sooner.
Some of the hardest work of caregiving happens nowhere near the person you're caring for. It happens in the quiet, in the questions you can't avoid forever, the ones about what's coming, who she'll still recognize and for how long, what you'll do when the call finally comes, who you'll tell, who you won't.
As you think about the future, what are you preparing yourself for?
I think oh, I would say it's kind of like in steps. So like I'm preparing for the day that like my mom like forgets who we are and
Mm.
stuff like that. Because even now, like with my daughter, she cannot remember my daughter's name. She actually calls her by her middle name because it's my best
Mm.
friend and she's known my best friend for a really long time. So I'm ready for her to or not ready, but anticipating that, preparing for when she kind of forgets who we are and how to navigate that. I also think navigating or preparing for, unfortunately, when that time comes that she does pass away, because I don't know what I'm going to get from my family. I know I have my support people, but I think there's like a part of me too that is just, "But what about these people? Where they're going to, even like navigating, like telling them and planning things and all of that too. Cause there's like a selfish part of me that's, I'm not going to tell them. Like, they don't deserve to know. But then there's the compassionate side of me that's no, you're gonna tell them. So it's like preparing how I'm gonna navigate that
Mhm.
too.
One of the strange gifts of doing this work in front of your own child, even a child too young to fully understand it, is that they're watching. They're absorbing what caregiving looks like, what love looks like when it's hard, what showing up looks like when you're tired. And whether Danielle planned it or not, she's teaching her daughter something her own childhood never quite got around to teaching her.
What do you hope that your daughter learns from watching you care for your mom?
That's a good question. That it's okay to ask for help, because I very much did not want to do that at first. I felt I had to take everything on. That you can ask for help. You don't have to take everything on yourself. I think too, just like being like trying to learn how to be present as well, because you take so much on the back end when you're a caregiver that sometimes I think you forget to be present. And so I hope to like she also just takes in as well of just the importance of moments and I don't know, just being present. Really, that's what comes to my mind.
Because here's what dementia doesn't take, not right away, anyway. Her mom may not always remember her granddaughter's name, but she lights up when she sees her. That part, whatever that part is, the part underneath the memory, is still working. And Danielle is holding on to it. Every visit, every moment, every time her mom chooses her daughter over her, she's collecting small proof that the love is still there, even when the name isn't.
Even though she can't remember her first name, that she very much adores her and loves her. Because I can remember, gosh, my mom always talking about, like, when are you going to give me a grandchild? And I'm like, I have given you grand animals. I had a dog and a cat and stuff too. So, like, she's been wanting to be a grandma for, like, ever. So just always, I want her to always know, like, her grandma very much adored her. Yeah. Half the time, I think she'd rather just see my daughter than me half the time when we go see her. So just that she was very much loved by her, even if there gets to a point where she doesn't know who she is.
Danielle, thank you for trusting us with this, for walking us back through the walks to the grocery store, the Father's Day project at the top of the stairs, the quiet years of caregiving no one ever gave you a name for, and for letting us into what it looks like now. The job you never put down, just stacked another one on top of it. There's something specific about the kind of love your story holds, the kind that shows up for people who couldn't always show up for you, the kind that teaches your daughter what caregiving looks like, just by letting her watch you do it, and the kind that keeps going, even when the person on the other end of it is slowly slipping away. If you are someone who has grown up early, who carried things you didn't have the words for, or if you're in the middle of caring for a parent right now and wondering if you're doing it right, I hope that this one sits with you. You're not alone in it, and the work you're doing, even when no one else sees it, matters. Thank you for listening to For the Haters. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and share the show, and we'll see you back here every Sunday with a new episode.
For the